Here it is, folks. It's Rent, and not the musical. We have our project featuring where we will live, how much it will cost, and what things to look out for. So in this project, we're basically looking at houses, nice little plastic houses. And we're going to make a copy of this Google Sheet so we can fill in all of our answers and then upload it to the Google Classroom assignment along with another Excel, or not Excel, I wish it was Excel, right? Google Sheets document as well. So we'll see that in the exploration section. So resources here, project lesson will be included once I finish making the video right now. There are some required viewing tidbits here for you. So some really good videos to check out just on apartment expenses, the cost of moving. This cost of moving one is weird. It's like they started doing this series and then for whatever reason didn't make the second video, but I was able to find the second video. So I don't know, it's a little bit weird, but it's still good. Key things to know about some lease stuff here from an attorney, so that's helpful as well. Some required reading, so this is our Bazinga, what is it? Bonsai reading bits here. And then we have at least 2 of these articles that you guys can check out. So a number of great articles here, the last of which just relate to more income stuff, but it's really important to still keep in mind that there are a huge population of people who live below the poverty line in the United States, and to just try and put it in perspective what it is like to try and find housing with those sort of income restrictions. So just keep in mind millions of real people living this life. So some good stats and stuff there. So open-ended questions here. So just, what do you think you want to kind of have as your living situation later on down the road? Most people rent at least at some point in their lives, so it's pretty good to think about some important things to you, whether it's the location or size or certain features, along with obviously price. Would you rather live with someone or alone, sort of deal? So those are open-ended questions. Guided practice here takes us through finding some information so we can try and relate this back to the sort of general population. So how much does the average American pay? What percentage of Americans rent? So all of these things trying to paint the sort of bigger picture here of renting in the United States for us. And then we also want to tie that into New Hampshire. So see if we can get kind of a local view on it as it relates to the national picture. Then we want to look at, well, I'll still include the number of people in the average American household. It was from the previous project. I'm including it here. Sorry if it feels duplicative for you, but I just wanted to at least have it to keep in mind that when we're renting, it's not always just as an individual. This, though, is completely left over from the last project. That's my bad. So boom, there's one less question for us to answer. I do just want to leave this one on because it is relevant, but you can copy it from your last project. So boom, easy. Then we go through and follow a few links here. So again, this is our sort of tell me the story of what's going on. So we've seen this a couple times pop up in projects as of late. So what I want you guys to do is look at these different figures. You can get the report here, here, or here. This is just the site for it. This is the actual PDF itself. And then here's just a copy that I made just in case something happens. I don't know, whatever, the Harvard site goes down for whatever reason. These all bring you to the same place. This one is just the first thing to click that you see. So basically we're looking at a few different figures here in that report. So here's figure 3. It's page 6 of the PDF, page 4 of the actual report, and it goes on. So there's a number of figures here that I want you guys just to tell me what's going on here. Not necessarily the right or wrong answer, just your takeaway from the information being presented to you. Next, I want you to read through the following lease agreement here. So this is just an example of what we might see. So this is taking us through just an example of a lease. I want you guys to then answer a few questions that are included in that lease. So read through it. Boom, here are the questions. And then we get to the exploration part. So this is where I think the project is the most fun. Not that the rest of it isn't fun. It is immensely fun, but this is like even better. So in this part of the project, you guys are going to be finding some apartments that you could rent, right? Real live apartments available today, slap down your down payment, call it a day. So what we're looking at is at least 3. If you want to go crazy and do 4, 5, 6, 7 and compare them all, that's totally fine with me. I'm only requiring you to do 3. So below I have some requirements on what I'm looking for in terms of where and everything. So the first is that we want 1 apartment in Portsmouth, 1 needs to be in New Hampshire, non-Portsmouth that is, and then 1 that's out of New Hampshire, Mass, California, wherever. Try to pick ones that you could see yourself renting. So don't just buy like but don't just pick like the craziest rental that you see and it's, $7,000 a month or whatever like that. So here are a number of different sites that you can use, and these are all just New Hampshire based, but you obviously can click into other states pretty easily from there. You don't need to just use these, but these are a pretty good head start at least. It's really hard for me to warn you like specifically what ads are going to be fake and which are going to be real. Try to not do the fake ones, but a lot of times you just end up not being able to distinguish between ads, and that's part of like the whole scam piece of renting, which is frustrating to deal with. But hey, it's better to get an idea of that stuff now before you're actually trying to rent, and then you actually like get duped into wiring a Nigerian prince, your savings account. So just keep that in mind. Tips for doing so: if it's too cheap, it's like obviously a no. You're not going to find a $500 3-bedroom 3-bathroom apartment in downtown Portsmouth. It's not a thing. Definitely fake. Any weird prices like 1201 or things of that nature. Rental prices are pretty straightforward. They land on flat dollar amounts, typically $25 increments. So, if I saw a rental for $1,050, that's legit. $1,054, probably not legit. If it doesn't have very many pictures or there's a weird description, that's also a pretty big tell right there for you. Make sure you read the ad itself to make sure it's for whatever it's advertising. And I have an example here. So this one is pretty common. You can see this for UNH, you see this for Plymouth. So, Durham, Plymouth, where am I thinking? Keene's also going to have this, just thinking of New Hampshire state schools, where you'll have a rental posted, but it's for a number of people. These are incredible. Like the amount of money that they pull in is absurd because it's based on the number of people. Whereas all the rentals you'll see is just, house for rent, 1,500 square feet, $2,000 a month. Boom. It doesn't matter if I live in it just as a single person, or if I have 2 people live in it, right? I've got a roommate or something, or maybe we have like 5 people in it. There are going to be some restrictions depending on where you go, how many people you can get in a house, but by and large, it's just based on the unit, not based on the number of people living in the unit. So you will find some kind of silly stuff around schools in terms of the housing. So here, just for example, this is a PSU apartment. So we got 2 3-bedroom apartments available for next year. You can rent 1 6-bedroom house if you wanted to. Just keep in mind that then it breaks it down by ideal students, $3,700 per student per semester. So you also have to keep in mind that this is per semester. So semesters are typically like about 3 months long. And then it breaks down, okay, well, if you're a single student, it's going to be this much per semester. Or if you want to stick, 2 people in 1 bedroom, then it'll be a little bit cheaper per person. So all of those things just, keep in mind. But we're going to avoid housing situations like this for this project, just for the purpose of keeping it simple. So try and avoid stuff like that. Your comparison for these rental units must include a screenshot. So you got to take a little picture. This above, would do just fine. URL link, just keep in mind this is going to expire eventually. These ads aren't just permalinks. They're like things that go up and go down as the actual availability varies. The rent itself, how many bedrooms, bathrooms, square feet, if pets are allowed, parking, all that stuff. So all of this included here. The utilities we're going to break down by utility. So we'll have heat, we'll have water, we'll have electricity, blah, 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 as it goes through. This is a pretty good list, but it's not everything. So, there may be other items you may be looking for, but this is a pretty good start. And if there's any notable features, so I don't know, maybe it's got a pool, maybe there's a gym on site, maybe it's against a lake, anything like that that's noteworthy you want to include. This will obviously vary as you do your own realistic apartment searching, or I should say rentals, because they're not all apartments. So you can buy or rent full houses, but maybe you're like super interested in having a bay window, or you're super interested in having a porch, right? That would be part of your like notes section there. So I have included an example here for you along with a sample spreadsheet that you guys can make a copy of. So here is my example for you. I would list it as apartment 1 for my column, and then I have all of these for my rows. So just like I spell out in the project here, where do I do it? Here we go. You will compare them in a Google Sheets document. Each apartment should have its own column, and then each item should have its own row. Boom. So we do that, and we see that here. So I have an example that I grabbed from Zillow. It's the first one that popped up, so there's no real bias or rhyme or reason why I picked this. It was just the first one to pop up. So here I have a $2,300 a month, 2-bedroom, 1.5 bath, 1330 square foot house in Kingston, New Hampshire. There's a nice little picture of it there. There's also a satellite picture below here. The only reason I included this is just so you guys know, when you're looking at houses in the future, sometimes the ad itself won't include certain features, like it may not say parking when there really is parking, because it's kind of like a no-brainer that there is parking available. And maybe this unit doesn't have parking, right? Maybe the ad is accurate, I'm not sure, but it looks like there's probably some parking right here. So you can just do a quick Google Maps, switch it to satellite view, and take a peek at the place to get an idea for it. This is also a good way of just getting a read for the neighborhood as well, if you haven't taken the time to drive through and maybe you're unfamiliar with it. So I go through and find all this information from my ad. I add a little note to myself saying no for information from the ad explicitly, but satellite looks like maybe yes. Washer dryer hookup, cool. And then no utilities included. Some of the ones that will be harder to find here for utilities would be like trash removal, snow removal, and lawn care. It's not always going to explicitly say, so you can just put NA or unknown, either way if you don't know. So if it doesn't say, then you can just say unknown. Water and sewer can sometimes be a little tricky with that as well, where it doesn't like explicitly say it. And then notable features for me was it's on a lake. So I saw from my satellite view it's on a lake, and also the description mentions that as well. From there, so that's just one, right? We're going to do at least 3 of those. They're pretty quick and easy, and it's really interesting to compare once you have them all lined up like that. Hard to compare otherwise. Then I want you to answer a couple questions about what you just found. So how does this compare to the national and state averages from earlier in the project? So is it higher or lower, depending on the apartments you picked? And then from here, I want you to compare this to the per capita income in New Hampshire and then the household, and these are both medians, so median per capita, median per household income in New Hampshire. How does this compare to your favorite of the rentals that you picked? So of the 3, and it could be 4 or 5 or 6, if you choose to do more, but of your top picks from the ones that you found, how does this compare? What percentage of the rental, so this is going to be the monthly rental times 12, because it's going to be an annual amount, how does that compare to your total salary that I'm comparing to here? So for example, if my rental was $1,000 a month, then I would say it's going to be $12,000 for the year. So I'd do 12,000 divided by, and then my 48 here. So for that example, it'd be roughly 31.13%. Now you'll find a lot of different things on the internet in terms of like what your sort of income ratio should be for your rental, and you'll have already seen some of that information from earlier in this project in some of those figures that we are taking a look at. But basically the most widely accepted sort of percentage is 30%. Some rentals won't even have you apply if your income is less than that. Some will be like 40% as a cutoff. It varies, and it's going to vary person to person. But basically, there is a very real need to have income to support the rental, and your rentor is going to be interested in what that is. So that's always going to be part of the process here. So we want to have a good idea of what that is. And really, if I were to super simplify it, I would say anything less than 20% is awesome. 20 to 30% is kind of like the sweet spot. 30 to 40% is like a little bit of a stretch. But from this project, you'll see there's a ton of Americans, like a ton. I don't want to tell you because you'll find it in the figures, but there's a ton that pay more than that 40%, and they are in this kind of like severely overburdened bucket. But you'll see that in the figures, so I'll let you guys find that out for yourselves. But it's a very real thing that many people pay more than that. So there are sort of exceptions, and it might be more widespread than you may believe. Last thing here, if you could do the conclusion for me, just something you learned, a question you have that arose from the project, and then something I could do to fix the project. And if you could go ahead and just pay the rent, that would be great. Enjoy the project, guys.